they're not. They choose to be in the ghetto. They make bad decisions, and I work there, and I know them. So look what he's teaching his daughter about lower class citizens, one, and then, you know, black African Americans. I'm like, dude, you could do a lot better with what you're teaching your children, because racism's taught, right?
Exactly.
It's taught.
We're trained.
Because you see the little kids, the little kid that was these two little boys, and they're running from like probably 20 feet apart, and they run and hug each other. Black kid, white kid, boom, hug, nice. That shit is...
So oddly enough, the story that you were talking about, and we're rolling, by the way.
Oh.
The story that you're talking about with the young girl on TikTok, that her dad was just kind of like, yes, 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 you said it all before, so just shut up about it, just shut up about it.
Yep.
Her pleas did not go unheard. So that video on TikTok was actually downloaded by somebody and transferred to Twitter, and then shared, I think, 80,000 times.
Wow. I'm not on Twitter. I just got on.
Yeah, you just got on the gram.
I just got on the gram.
Yeah, do it for the gram.
I just did.
No, but like, I just read that story today, so that's funny that you bring that up, that she's pleading, and her plea did not fall on deaf ears.
That's great, man.
You know what I mean? Like, it got shared, and a lot of people went to bat for this young lady because she gets it. She understands the humanity
at such an early age.
Right.
And I think that's where you got to get these people, is at an early age, because you have that, there's an old way, and I had an old pastor, she said that there's an old way of stinking thinking.
Right.
And it's just the way you think, that the way that it is the way that it is, and it'll never be any different. So when my kids, this is the knowledge and gems I'm passing down to my kids, that these are lower class people. I mean, the separation and non-unity is being taught and preached from certain generations down to generation down to generation, and somebody's got to break it. And for that little girl to stand up against her parent, which is very tough, to stand up against your parents and say no. And she did that, and I had 10 times so much more respect for her. I just wanted to hold her hand in the whole ordeal. Like, you know what? It's okay. You're right. He's wrong. Do you? And
right.
I felt that little girl to my core. Like, the essence of what she's trying to say was perfect. And he just wouldn't listen. Then I saw there's another video of these two girls who colored in their driveway Black Lives Matter. Beautiful drawing, chalk drawings. Their parents get home. They said you should have talked this before you did this. We need you to spray all of it off.
Right.
I'm like, are you kidding me? So again, it's what's taught from generation to generation, but there's got to be a generation break.
Right.
So that's what I've noticed. As we said, TikTok is taking on a whole new culture now. It's not as funny right now, which is fine by me, but some of the videos and items on there are very passionate. They're very strong, powerful. I've been all over TikTok and ESPN. That's all I've really done today.
Right. Well, I mean, since we've already started, let's take a second to make introduction. We're not live on Facebook tonight, so you won't have to deal with us laughing at other people's comments. But this will be up on Facebook eventually, and this video is obviously for YouTube. So, three crafty bastards. Here we are, black and white tonight. Yeah, why not, right?
Yeah.
Over to my right,
Mr. Classic.
And of course, I'm B. Smith. And you know, it's really hard to not talk about what's going on right now. I mean, I made no notes. I took no notes. I didn't come with any agenda other than to be able to vent or be able to have a discussion about what's going on right now. So,
because that's all of what's going on.
It is all.
In all honesty, when you look at the different mediums, or the different across the different genres, if you look at the news, sports, news and entertainment, things like that, they're all talking about the protests going on surrounding the death of George Floyd, and it's amazing. It's overwhelming. I just feel like it's a great time to be alive right now. I'm excited about what's going on. I'm more excited for the result. This is part of the process, but there's going to be a result, as opposed to all the protesting. And protesting, you know, started in Minnesota. went across the country, including here in Fort Wayne, and it's around the world. And you said Paris, England,
Yeah.
Australia.
Yeah, the UK. I talked to a friend of mine from the UK today, and I said, you know, how are you holding up? Because we're just coming off the heels of COVID-19, so don't act like that's gone away. It certainly isn't the dominant issue right now. But I said, how are you holding up? You know, because their restrictions were a whole lot worse than ours. Their country was, I guess I would like to say, more worried about their people and about containing the virus than putting people back to work. So they were off a little bit longer.
Ooh.
Right.
Hits the economy.
Well, it is, you know, and I just asked him, how's things holding up? And we exchanged pleasantries, and then I said, is there any protesting where you're at? And he said, yeah, in larger cities there is. So this is something that all you got to do is turn on the news, and you know that protests have taken over the world due to incidents. Because we can't say that it's been one isolated incident that has sparked this protest. It certainly was the catalyst as of late.
Yep.
Because the visual of it was undeniable. I watched it once.
I watched it numerous times.
Any more than that would have really kind of put me in a mental position that maybe I didn't necessarily need to be in, or unneeded stress of watching something like that. Not to say that is not a real situation. People deal with things differently, and all it took for me was once. I was like, that's enough, man. I just watched a man die, and that is not part of my, you know, that's not a part of the humanity that I want to be a part of. That's shameful. To witness something like that. And it leaves you in a position that you're helpless, because in watching it after it's already done, you literally have to stand by and do nothing, which is exactly what happened at that point in time, which is exactly what sparked the protest and became the catalyst for not only a nationwide but a worldwide movement as far as Black Lives Matters goes.
Well, and then you look at what the part of the buildup. I think you can look at, well, sports wise, I'm going back to 2016 with Colin Kaepernick.
But I think everybody should go back to 2016.
So
right?
you go back to 2016, but you look at the deaths, the senseless deaths that have happened in between. There are numerous, and there's so many. It's like, I felt like that movement with Colin Kaepernick in 2016 was just kind of shoved under the rug. And I think the fact that this George Floyd death was thrown in your face, and you have to look at it, you have to deal with it. And the more that I looked at it and dealt with it, the more angrier I got. Like, we have to do something. We have to change. We have to get better. Because you look at even the Ahmaud Bradbury, it's not Bradbury, Ahmaud Arbery, whatever his last name was. When he was gunned down by citizens, and then you had Breonna Taylor, I forget the lady's name. It was Tatiana, who was shot in her home. There's police officers in her backyard. She looks open the window, and they shoot her through the window.
Right.
They didn't even announce themselves. So there's so many senseless deaths that are adding up. We thought that they were going down after the Kaepernick awareness, and then they went down, but then they're starting to ramp back up. So the fact that George Floyd was in our face, like, whoever had that video, if they made that a documentary, I guarantee it win an Oscar.
So here's the question: is, do you really think that that it has gone down, that it ramped down violence against African Americans? Do you really feel like it's ramped down, or until the point in time where it became exuberantly visual and you had to watch it because it was everywhere? Aubrey getting gunned down, we watched that. I watched that once because it's hurtful to me to watch another human being go through something like that. Same with Floyd. You know, I watched that once because I was angry, I was upset, but it's hurtful to me as a human being to watch another human being go through that. So the one time was all it took. You know, is it that police brutality against people of color has actually subsided, or is it that it took a back seat to the other issues that we had going on at the moment, i.e. COVID-19, i.e. Karen calling the cops on anybody of color for no particular fucking reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then you are hit with these videos that are in your face, 100% death on video, which makes it real, makes it almost surreal to watch someone die. We watch movies all the time. You're a big movie buff.
Mm-hmm.
And to watch somebody die in a movie is no big thing. You almost expect it.
Because we know it's fake.
Right. But to watch something like
TV,
that,
yeah.
Can you imagine videotaping that? I'm almost disappointed that the person videotaping that did not say, man, get the fuck off of him, or hurl your phone at him, or throw something, or get their attention so that this guy gets the fuck up.
Yeah.
You know, it hurts me and it disappoints me, even though I know it exists. It disappoints me to know that there are people that are out there that are like that have that mindset. You know, we've become a society that we don't help people anymore. We record it and then we riot later. We deal with it later. We deal with the repercussions as long as we got the shot.
Yeah.
And that to me is almost shameful, you know, because had it been me, I know that I would have said something. I don't know if I'd have necessarily hurled something at me, that might have been my neck, you know, but it is what it is. Somebody got to live.
Yeah.
You know, so
I think Kaepernick in 2016, I just want to go back to this real quick.
Yeah, certainly.
Kaepernick in 2016, I believe the awareness, at least the reported cases, had gone down. I think between 2016 and then probably 2017, the cases were down, at least the visual ones. And I think they started to ramp up because they were like, well, Kaepernick's out of the NFL. His movement's dead. They basically paid it no mind in 2016, 2017.
Right.
He had a lawsuit with the NFL, won the lawsuit. They paid him off. As I said before, the impact of what he was trying to do in 2016, like you had a perfect observation or whatever you said earlier about, you know, this is the justice we should have had in 2016 is what we're getting now in 2020. Yeah, certainly.
You know, it was in 2016. It was justice that was needed that fell on deaf ears.
Yep.
And now with this catalyst, with this spark, the justice that we are wanting now is the justice that we should have expected for ourselves, for everyone, black, white, Asian, purple, green, red, whatever. This is the justice that we should have expected for ourselves back in 2016 when this initially started, when this initially became not only an issue, but an issue that had been pushed to the forefront to the agenda of the American people, you know, or people worldwide for that matter.
And it was a peaceful protest in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't even, Colin Kaepernick probably would have never said anything had the media not blown it up. They said, we saw you not standing. He was sitting on a bench during the anthem, chilling. They caught him once, caught him 2 weeks in a row. Hey, what's up with you sitting? That's when the issue came out, and then it became a big issue. So, Twisted.
Certainly.
Here's a part of
hoopla.
A part of one of my favorite poems says, "Twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools."
Yeah.
I feel like that's what happened to his cause in 2016. So they made it all about soldiers and the flag, and Drew Brees still tried to.
Yeah.
But we all know when you have the video clip of Kaepernick saying, "I respect all the soldiers, basically past and present, fought for our freedom, for our rights, but they also fought for our rights to protest."
Right.
So, but they're saying, well, you can protest, but just not this way. That's how that was. So I guess we're tired of being told how to protest.
Right.
So part of it was peaceful. Part of it was not. I disagree with the looting, the vandalism, but I'm not mad because that's what it takes to get someone's attention.
Certainly. And you know, the funny thing about it is a month ago, it was let's say the opposite side of the spectrum that had our attention. People were up at arms because they were asked to stay home. They were asked to quarantine themselves in order to not spread the COVID-19. And you had every Tom, Dick, and Harry that thought that since they were an American and it was their God-given right, they were going to be out in public. They were not going to wear a mask. They were not going to abide by the suggested guidelines, and anything more that was required of them was tyranny. It was pretty simple. Don't spread it. Stay the fuck home for a little bit. We're going to get through all this.
And that was
just have some patience.
And that was the protest with the guys on the state capitol with the AR-15s. And they were seen as good citizens, weren't tear gassed or anything, and they had freaking rifles and guns, and they were armed to the teeth.
Government building, every single one of those
and
persons.
They weren't tear gassed. They didn't have the National Guard. They didn't have anything.
Yeah,
you got peaceful protesters with signs, chants, no guns, at least that we're aware of. Got the National Guard, got full police force, got tear gas, got rubber bullets.
Yeah.
Which you know what rubber bullets are just real bullets with rubber casings.
Yeah.
So up close, you can actually get killed with one of those.
Right.
Close range.
Yeah. So, you know, a month ago, it was people protesting over haircuts, and they stormed the state capitol in Michigan, and AR-15s. It was every guy that either wished he was in the army or wished he was a police officer. You know, it just geared to the freaking teeth, and he wants his rights back. But what about the rights of others? You know, and that if you look at it, if you really dissect that situation, then that's really what it was about. Was what about the rights of others? Yeah. We want. Well, you know what? Now we want. You know, now the world wants. Now sensible people want equality, and to have a leader. Let's say, and I use that term very loosely. Let's just call it for what it is. To have a quote-unquote leader that flips the lights off and hunkers down in a bunker when people are ready to storm the White House it just shows character. Mm-hmm. It shows that there's no leadership at all. You know, I hate to make this reference, but Hitler divided Germany before he united them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's exactly what's happening right now, is that we're being divided, and you see it everywhere. People even recently, even after the killing, even after the protest, even after the rioting and the fires and the looting, people are still held in their convictions that we are not all equal. And I don't understand it. Eventually, you know, the minorities in this country are the majority.
Mm-hmm. As a whole, yes.
As a whole, yes. If it was as simple as taking one phone call to unite us all, it's over. And fortunately, you have people, I'm going to say on both sides, mm-hmm. that are willing to fight the good fight. Mm-hmm. And that's what needs to happen. You know, to think that anyone is lesser than someone else is evil.
Yeah, but, you know, your history lesson and how slavery started. I watched part of a documentary the other day titled, it's a project called 1619. Mm-hmm. And that is the year before the Europeans came and populated the 13 colonies.
Right.
So 1619 was the year that they brought all the slaves over and started building the areas for the 13 colonies. So we're talking about the impact of building the United States on the back of Africans then. So when you look at the history lesson of what's really out there, it's just crazy that you look at how long we've been in slavery, or how long slavery lasted. We have the Emancipation Proclamation,
sure,
1863, if I'm correct. Anyway, that's 1620 or 1619 to 18. That's 250 years, and then you had slavery. Technically, you still had, they weren't really free. They had the Separate but Equal Act. Don't get me wrong on the dates on those, but there was a Separate but Equal Act. So yeah, the 3/5 compromise.
1862.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, you look at the plight of Africans, African Americans, and you go back again 1619, which is probably before that, but 1619 all the way to 2019 is 400 years, right?
All right.
So we're looking at 400 years of being in the United States and how long Africans, African Americans, blacks have been oppressed.
Right.
And you look at the right to vote, if I'm correct, was in 1960 something, 63, 66, somewhere in that area. Women's right to vote was in the 70s. So if you go all the way, only in the past, what, 30 years plus? 50? Sorry, math is off. However, they've had maybe 20 to 30 years of what's considered freedom. Even you have different laws like the 13th Amendment, abolish slavery except for unless you're locked up in prison. So that's where you find out how many African Americans or minorities, blacks, who are incarcerated versus non-black, non-minorities. It's skewed because there's still a certain level of slavery today. Like when the labor that they get out of prisons, they get pennies on the dollar.
Sure. Like
they're getting paid literally 10 cents, 25 cents for items that sell for $50 to $100 per se. And so to me, slavery's never gone away.
Right.
It's still here. You still have an oppressed people because the obscure number of non-whites in prison based on percentage and population, it's crazy. And then you look at the sentencing for the same charges for one person who's non-white, a person who's white. You get life here and you get probation there.
Fun fact. You could get up to 6 months for protesting in certain parts of this country right now. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Brock Turner got 3 months for rape.
And
Let that sink in.
Hold on. The other guy in that Brock Turner case was Brock Turner. He was not the
He's the
right?
swimmer.
Okay. The swimmer that raped?
The swimmer. College swimmer.
And he raped a girl, right?
He raped a girl behind a dumpster.
And then you see the other African American guy who was a football player,
mm-hmm.
raped a girl. He got, I don't know how many years in prison and lost all his athletic everything.
He didn't rape her. She said he raped her.
That is true. But he was convicted.
He was convicted.
And he got the book thrown at him.
Right.
So
just food for thought. You can get more time right now for rioting and for protesting than Brock Turner got for rape.
That's disgusting.
That is very disgusting.
So those are the inequalities that a lot of people, in a sense, are still fighting for.
Certainly, and actually, to double back on your voting rights, it was 1965.
That was close.
It was the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that allowed all African American men to vote or all African Americans to vote, because actually African American men could vote prior to that, but they had to be landowners.
Mm-hmm.
So if you weren't a landowner, then you couldn't vote. In 1965, it evened the playing field.
So part of this movement is really becoming, we're still not equal. I had a conversation with a friend and a coworker about what all this means and what's going on, and this person's like, just because they see all people as equals, well, I don't do that. That's not the way I treat blacks. That's not the way I treat Hispanics. That's not the way I treat minorities. That's fine that you don't, but there's a lot of people that do. So, but we also need the legislation like we've had in 1965. You said 1863, 1860, whatever, for the emancipation. So there's got to be legislation passed to make minorities equal, because we're not. We're still not.
I feel like it's pretty simple. We got somebody. We got
From the peanut gallery.
Our producer over here in the peanut gallery has a thought. Juan, come on over here, man. Are we too loud, or what? Our sound jacked up? Or?
No. I just wanted to add, like, even though in 1965, when the legislation's passed, it was still impossible for black people to even vote.
Yep.
And it still went on for years. It was just like you would go up to vote, and they would just close the door on you. They were just like, yeah, you can vote, but guess what? We're not going to let you vote.
They'd find some way to not let them vote.
They just find some way to not let them vote.
And I feel like actually that translates to today, the 2016 election, and then the 2018 midterms. They were finding ways to not allow people to vote who they assumed would vote against the current regime in power. And that's a very strong term, but that's exactly what it is. The current regime in power.
So 50 years later hasn't changed a whole lot.
It really hasn't.
And they do it in other ways with, like, segregating, like, different ways, like how you have money and you have money and I have money, basically the way we're living, that they would put people in different areas and they would mark them off and say, well, now you live in this area and it's a poor neighborhood.
Right.
And you don't make much money. And then that money only gets funded, because I just saw a whole thing on it. But, like, even, like, the racism was in there. And they would cut funding for schools, or even for you to get a loan. Like, a black person even couldn't get a loan, you know?
Right.
Because of those things, you know? Anyway.
Okay, so while we're on the terms of voting, because we're getting ready to hit that 30-minute mark, did you guys vote in the primaries on Tuesday?
Yes.
Absentee?
Yeah.
Cool.
I showed up.
You showed up. I showed up as well. And I made sure I drug my woman down there as well. You need to vote. Did you find anything funny about the voting experience?
Well, absentee.
Absentee.
I didn't know.
Okay, so
that was a new location for me, but that's about it.
I thought it was really weird that, and I'm sure it's how it goes. It just struck me as funny that if you say you're voting Democrat, they primarily only offer you Democratic options. You know, what if I wanted to change my vote? What if I wanted to vote Republican on this particular position?
But that's why I didn't do that. I didn't state my party.
You didn't state your party?
No.
I feel like I was forced to do it. Huh. So did you get to vote both ends?
I did. You know, based on the research, because you have to read and research, and that's probably why some people don't vote, because you actually have to put thought into who you're voting for.
Right.
And you're reading about a bunch of stuff. Part of it you may care about, and a lot of it you may not. But you have to understand that a lot of what affects us in our cities is what we voted for Tuesday.
Yeah.
So it's not about voting for President Trump or Obama, whomever. It's not about that.
It's
because
about,
it happens. What happens on the local level is what affects us more directly.
Yeah, it was the big one was raising property tax by, I think 1.4% or something like that, to have money to donate to make improvements to the schools in Fort Wayne Community Schools area.
And you almost have to.
Yeah, I 100% voted. I don't have any kids in school yet, but I 100% voted on that.
Yeah, my school that I went to, the Village Woods Middle School, is in shambles. It's finally shut down, but it was, even when I was going there in the 80s, we had ceiling tiles that were falling on the floor, stuff that needed to be repaired, stuff that was rusted. It needed repairs back then. So when we left and went to Paul Harding High School after that, which is not a high school anymore, but that school still stands because Harding was built in 1969, so it's relatively new.
Right.
A lot of the schools that we went to back in the day, man, they're probably in the 40s, 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Right.
So the repairs that a lot of these schools need are what we should have voted on, and I voted for it too, because I think it's necessary to repair. There's a repair community schools. There's a thing for that. You probably saw that. Some of these schools are so old, and you have to get it done.
Okay, so we're gonna take a quick break. This is our 30-minute mark. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back to you with an additional 30 minutes right now.